International relations expert. We were getting to a very interesting part of our conversation before the minister started his speech, and I just wanted to finish that part before we continue on. But you heard there that the U.S. Trade Rep, Ambassador Catherine Tai, saying that this deal has an impact on real lives and real people, and it's a beacon that shines for many people for years to come. And yet you're hearing Ugandan government representatives saying that expulsion from the deal will now impact farmers that were getting loans and exporting to the US market because of that. And the contradictories there are quite alarming, aren't they?
It is very hypocritical, you know, in terms of them pushing the agenda of trying to help the needy person, and at the same time, you know, they are trying to create a problem from the other side. This is what I also mentioned earlier, that look, the sanctions in Zimbabwe, which has drastically affected the unemployment levels in South Africa. So if they lift those sanctions in Zimbabwe, they will automatically help South Africa. So you can't be hypocritically in terms of dealing this. They must be inclusive in terms, if they have the passion, like what she said, that she mentioned, she walked to the, you know, the museum of Peterson where he was killed, and the fight of, you know, all those are goodies and stories that we would like to hear as people. But the question is, you can see that from the audience, they were very happy when Ibrahim Patel announced the closing of the session, because they want to get out of these long statements and you know, speeches which has been going on, and I think it has been repeating itself. You see, the agenda of Africa has been defined by the formation of the African Organization of African Union in 1963. There's an African Charter, a document that has been abandoned, that they're supposed to follow. What we need in Africa, in simple terms, we need the creation of employment. How is a question that most of the people they are actually asking. It is to industrialize Africa, not to export raw materials. They must export finished products. If America wants to be in partnership with Africa, they must come and bring investment here, set up factories so that we can make toothpicks from here. Why should we import toothpicks and toothpicks that we can also make from here? You know, we've got trees. They must create the value chain completely from logistics up to finished products. That's what we want in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know then how big a seat at the table we would have in those conversations, because we do have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and now there are talks to integrate it more with AGOA. But if we're not the big decision makers within AGOA, the amendments that have been discussed, how do we then encourage not only the exporting of finished goods to the United States, but intra-Africa trade? We brag quite a bit that we manufacture Mercedes-Benz and BMW components and send them to the United States. But how many of our fellow countrymen buy products that are produced within the continent?
You see, this is a question that we always ask. In fact, at one of the Black Business Council I sat and I spoke, I mentioned that the trade industry, in terms of the automobile manufactured goods, can we manufacture all the business markets for all these automobiles, the BMW, Mercedes, Audi, you name it, those which are coming from outside, for our market in South Africa or in Southern Africa or in Africa at large, we manufacture them from here. In that way, we create industrialization to create employment. Now, what is happening now, we're exporting those uranium, the copper, the Ibrahim Patel was mentioning, we are creating jobs in the United States of America because those industries have been fed. So, for instance, a mine only employs 2,000 employees, mining those uranium or copper. And if those raw materials are exported, only those 2,000 people are benefiting. But if we create a value chain from logistic, transport, and as well as manufacturing the refinery, we are actually taking our African continent to a level that we will be consumers of our own production. In terms of agriculture, you know, Africa at the moment cannot produce enough food to feed herself. Now, we're talking about exporting food. You know, my country, Zambia, is just crying now because of the price of the very commodity which we love, the milli meal. You know, the prices are skyrocketed because of underproduction. So how can we bring the investment to mass produce food that will be enough for our consumption, and we can talk about the export later.
Yeah, and I suppose that would pour some fear, some water on fears around the change in leadership in the United States next year. Big fears that Donald Trump could make a comeback and go back to his protectionism campaign, which he led when he was president, and really just exercise executive authority and cancel AGOA. We would then need to be in a position where we are able to take care of ourselves within the continent, and one wonders if it's something that could become a reality should that change in leadership come.
There's no security of membership. You saw what happened in Uganda. Uganda wanted to exercise their rights to govern their own people. They have been cut off. Niger has been cut off because they say there is human rights violations. But if you look at the coup d'etats in West Africa, they are not perpetrated by those who are in government. You know, they are being perpetrated by those who are from the external factors. So now we are punishing the local people who are supposed to benefit from these situations. But I'm very happy that, you know, if we have a platform such as AGOA with all these goodies, Africa must be on the table to mutually benefit and set the agenda that this is an African agenda. There's Agenda 2063, which has been going on. You know, that has to be implemented in terms of industrialization. There's African Union as well, charters which has been codified that it has to be implemented. All these charters has been abandoned. Now they are talking about this AGOA and the $19 billion trade which has happened in the last 12 months. That $19 billion is a ton or a few tons of our so-called minerals here, and we shall pay our debts in the African continent. Look at how we were exposed in terms of COVID pandemic.
Yes.
You know, President Cyril Ramaphosa, for now and then, he was crying. I could see him, you know, with his emotion. He said, why can't we not manufacture our own vaccines for our own people, for our own consumption? You know, now because of the World Health Organization must test those on concubines, or they must test and prove them that we're supposed to consume. So these are the bureaucratic and the geopolitics. That's why you can hear in this meeting as well, forum, which they haven't achieved, they're still crying for transformation, for Africans to be recognized on the dinner table, as not to chase away the investment or whatever trade and investment from outside, but to be fully recognized as full participants, and we shall demand that space. In fact, as I conclude on that point, if you may allow me, during the apartheid time, you know, for those who followed the apartheid government, there was bad side of apartheid, yes, and partly of it, it was a working government. You know, it can be debatable, but I remember very well that the apartheid government told the United States of America that if you have to deal with South Africa, a dollar and the rand must be 1-to-1. It can't be a 19, I give you a 19 rand, then you give me only $1. It can't be like that. That's why United States of America changed from calling the ANC as terrorists to start supporting the transformation so that the apartheid government should go. So now they have taken advantage, they have come to take advantage of the alien ANC and the geopolitics of this world. But we shall continue talking about these things as we go on.
Indeed, we shall. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio. That is Dr. Charles Sinkala, international relations expert, joining us to speak about AGOA, the positives and the negatives, and really what Africa should be demanding at the seat of the table that they are part of currently.